Concerns, and I think they should be addressed.
You don't know about them until they bring them to your attention.
Anger and questions after a 13 News Now investigation uncovers big problems behind bars. Tonight, lawmakers tell us they want to take a closer look.
We were first to tell you about what some say is a risky staffing shortage at Virginia prisons. 13 News Now investigative reporter Laura Geller joins us now with more.
They have legitimate concerns that should be addressed. That's the word from lawmakers after our Crisis in Corrections investigation. The reaction comes as officers gathered at a town hall in Richmond today.
A freshman state delegate.
Everybody deserves a safe place to work.
A long-term state senator.
We recognize, I think, that those are some of the lowest paid folks.
A lawmaker who is also a prosecutor.
I think you're bringing to light some of the most important criminal justice issues that we're dealing with right now.
All talking to 13 News Now after watching our investigation. It uncovered a situation with turnover so high and staffing so low, corrections officers tell us it is a time bomb ticking. Delegate Cheryl Turpin represents Virginia Beach.
As these staffers become more stressed, then their ability to react in appropriate fashions and in a timely fashion lessens, and that should be a concern for all of us.
Senator Frank Wagner says DOC funding and pay raises for corrections officers didn't appear to be a top priority in the original budget.
Clearly, I think your efforts here at Channel 13 have moved that up on the priority list, because certainly if we're not aware of a problem, it's very difficult for us to fix.
State leaders counter the proposal includes a 2% raise for all state employees and funding for each correction officer to get an additional $1,100 increase. Add that to what DOC tells us is the average salary, and you get an annual pay of just over $37,000. But federal statistics show the national average salary for COs is $47,600. Even with the additional money, COs in the Commonwealth will still be paid more than $10,000 less than the national average. We asked if that's enough.
No, it's not. We need to do a better job of sort of making a course correction.
Corrections officers who reached out to us say it's just a drop in the bucket. And because healthcare premiums will likely rise, many feel this is a slap in the face.
We haven't passed our budget this year yet. Hopefully we will get that done probably in the next 5-6 weeks. In the meantime, it certainly gives us one more opportunity this year to take a look at those issues and see if we can provide some additional funding.
Mullen agrees the GA has to take responsibility because the consequences are real.
I prosecuted countless numbers of crimes coming from our jails and our prisons where people were injured as a result of violence by a prisoner, and I don't want to ever have to see that happen to anyone again.
Virginia's public safety secretary wasn't able to attend the officers union town hall in Richmond today. He tells me the safety of correctional officers, probation and parole officers and inmates remains a top priority for Governor Northam. Laura Geller, 13 News Now.